Hey, quick question. You bring up somas, and you don't really hear about somas anymore. You don't really even hear about painkiller abuse as much as you used to, but especially during that period of time in the 90s. Painkillers and somas and Nubane and all these different drugs were being used by a lot of different people. And of course, it ended up costing several their lives. Was there ever any talk when you were on the creative team in WWE? Did anyone ever bring it up to Vince that some of these guys are having problems with pills?
Gingerly. And no, I mean, here's the thing. You didn't want to get heat on somebody with Vince unless for something they were doing, unless it was causing a problem. And truthfully and honestly, from my standpoint, the ones that were the biggest problem was the ones that he catered the most to. And I mean, it's not like I'm knocking these guys. Didn't Scott Hall either Scott Hall did an interview talking about a night he spent in a hotel with Shawn Michaels, or Shawn was doing an interview talking about the night he spent in a room with Scott Hall, where they were like, "Hey, bro, you still alive? Here's another couple of gimmicks." And so Vince, at the same time, I remember he was specifically hot at Louis Spicolli. Spicolli got the fucking spot there. Everybody liked Louis Spicolli. The first time I met him in Continental, he looks so much like Bobby Eaton. I said, one of these days, I'm going to have my own territory, and I'm going to book you to come in as Bobby Eaton's little brother so the heels can fucking cripple you and Bobby can get revenge, right? And then, of course, I had my own territory, but I didn't have Bobby, and then Spicolli got the spot up there as Rad Radford. Anyway, he had the issues with fucking pills and whatever, and he got canned for it because it was bad. But I remember one time, because Spicolli was friends with Candido, we were out in California. It may have been WrestleMania 96, and I'm in the car with Vince and JR and Bruce, and we're going to the building. And we passed Candido and Tammy, and Spicolli was, because he was from California anyway, and he was visiting them, so he was in the back seat. And Vince looks over and, well, there's that drug-addicted bastard. You know, like, your fucking idiot champion. Well, he wasn't a champion. He was about to win the title that night, was the biggest pillhead in the fucking locker room, Shawn Michaels. And poor Spicolli, because he let it get out of hand and didn't have the fucking stroke. He got canned over it as a drug-addicted bastard. Or drug-addled or something, like, or drug-infested. It was some drug prefix. Drug-infested, I think it was. But you never knew whether Vince, how he would take something, if it was causing a problem, if the guy was hurting people or fucking getting in an issue or whatever the fuck. A lot of times Jim Ross would be the guy to go speak to him if there was some problem. But you didn't just bring up that, well, guys are doing this if there was no problem, because then you might as well just say, hey, Vince, you need to get almost your whole roster out of here. If it was a problem, then they would talk to him on an individual basis. But then I just didn't get it, because the fucking guys that he was featuring on top were blatant and flaunting about what they were doing. And he wasn't doing anything about that. But if you were Louis Spicolli, he'd fire your ass.
There was never any talk about doctors that were overly friendly with the wrestlers, supplying them with stuff.
Oh God! Yeah, after that fucking the guy in Indianapolis, yes. Then there was plenty of talk about that. Vince didn't want those people on the same. He didn't want them in the same dimension. If he could have cooked up some kind of fucking time machine and transported them to another dimension, he would have done it. The fucking doctors. He had that. What was his name? Hackett in Indianapolis.
I don't remember.
There was a doctor, it was like 96, 97, 98, where the late 90s in Indianapolis, I think he was involved with Pillman. I'm sure if we had Uncle Dave on now with his amazingly, recall memory, he could give you statistics. But yeah, they got rid of that guy when they found out about him, because he had learned from Zaharian. I'm not saying that Vince cared if guys did it, but he didn't want fucking lightning rod doctors involved with his fucking guys. If a guy was enterprising enough to find his own doctor and he wasn't a fucking mark and that it wasn't being spread around the locker room, you could probably got away with a lot back then. And I'm sure a bunch of people did. But once that a doctor got hot, Vince wanted to send them to fucking Pluto.